Hi guys, my name is Hope and I applied for BYU last fall and I got in. So I'm going to BYU this fall and I want to go into advertising or communications and see where I go from there. I wanted to make this video because as I was going through high school and thinking about where I wanted to go to college, I would look up online how to get into places and how to get into college. And some of the things really helped me, but there was no really specific guideline about how to get into BYU, which I always really wanted to go to. BYU is obviously different because it's a church-run private school. So I wanted to make a video incorporating that information into the normal how to get into college. In no way am I an official or I know exactly how to get into BYU, but I feel like I'm pretty reliable because I have two older sisters who got into BYU and I'm the third going to BYU. So I broke up this video into 5 parts to make it simpler. I have church, extracurriculars, grades, recommendations, and essays. And so I'm just gonna walk you through all of those components and tips about how each one can help you get into BYU and the importance of each one of them. So first we're going, and excuse me, because I'm going to be looking at my laptop with all my notes. Okay, so first, church. So seminary is actually really important in the new application that I had to go through for the first year. The new application makes it so that your seminary teacher has more say than your bishop. So if you're in Utah and you haven't even been with your seminary teacher for that long before you need to start your application, it's really important to establish a good connection with them and have a good relationship with them, so when it comes time for their recommendation, they're going to say, he is a 5-star student. So the seminary teacher fills out 1 through 5 about how good of a seminary student they are. And obviously you want to be the 5-star student. You want to be participating in class and engaged in seminary. And so make sure that your teacher sees that, and maybe if you don't know your teacher that much, before you start your application, drop some hints about how much you want to get into BYU so they'll give you a good recommendation because it really matters. So next under church is your bishop. Obviously you need to do a bishop recommendation and it's called a ecclesiastical endorsement. And so obviously just don't be sinning. Don't have any serious sins that will prevent you from getting into the church school. If you do, make sure to just make them right with the bishop before you start your application. So next is extracurriculars. And I've watched a lot of videos about how to get into college, and extracurriculars is always one thing that are pretty different for each school. But for BYU, I'll tell you what I've gathered about what they're looking for in their perfect student. So make sure to go big in only a few areas. Don't try to be in every single club because they know that's not really realistic. In the clubs that you do join, really put a lot of effort into participating in them and try to make an impact in them. BYU wants to see how you benefited your community. For example, if you're doing volleyball, don't just do volleyball and be on the team. Go and try to be a coach for a little league or start a volleyball camp. They want to see how you took your talents and what you're interested and tried to better the community with them. Essentially, they want the students that they accept to be engaged in their BYU campus and activities. And so how they make sure that you'll do that is by looking at how you were engaged in your high school. Join sports, clubs, academic team, debate team, DECA, Educators Rising, yearbook. Any of that will help the college know how engaged in your school you are. Next is grades. Make sure to always try your best, turn in the homework, and get all the little points that you can. They add up. If you're deciding which classes you should take and what BYU looks for the most, don't take a ton of APs that you know are going to kill your GPA. In the old application, only 5 AP courses even counted towards you. So after you took your 5th AP course, it didn't give you any leverage over people that took 5 AP courses. So considering that knowledge from the last application, you can see that BYU isn't looking for someone who's taking 1 million AP courses. Take classes that you know you will do well in. Like for me, I love history and English, and so those are the classes that I decided to take hard classes in. Keep in mind that BYU takes an unweighted GPA. So the honors 0.5 and the 1.0 for boost for your GPA if you take AP and honors courses won't apply for your unweighted GPA. For the ACT and SAT, take it as many times as you can and study. Just every day, just set a time, like 20 minutes, to just go through each section. For me, I would always do so bad in math. And so after school for 20 minutes, I would just go through math problems on the ACT books. A lot of schools have free ACT books, and online there are also courses that you can take. So the average ACT right now is a 29. I got a 25 the first time, but I took it 6 times. And a lot of people were like, whoa, you took it 6 times? But my mom just said, take it as many times as you can to get the score that you want. So I ended up getting a 30. It doesn't matter how many times you take it, except for the cost, that does matter. But because you only send in your best score. For a lot of colleges, you have to tell them how many times you took it to get that score, but for BYU, you only send in your best score. So on the application, when you put in your grades, they will calculate your unweighted GPA for you. You manually insert your grades for freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year, but I didn't even need to put in my senior year grades because I submitted my application before my first quarter grades came out. You put in your letter grades and not your percentages. Make sure you have access to all your grades right when you put them in so that they are all really accurate. BYU will not accept you if you put in wrong grades, obviously. So a lot of people, including me, took high school classes in middle school. So I took Algebra 1 and I took Spanish 1 and 2. So I always thought that those would count towards my GPA, but when I opened the application, they didn't have anywhere to put middle school grades. So my middle school grades just got wiped from my GPA, which was really good because they brought my GPA down. So I took Spanish 1 and 2, but I just didn't even put those in it, and on the transcript I just had to put Spanish 3 on my freshman year, and I guess they assumed that I took 1 and 2 before that. Going back to senior year grades, BYU, I called them and asked them about this, and they said they will not reject you on grades you got past the time that you submit your application. Recommendations are a really important part of your application, but they have really specific rules and guidelines about them. So you get 2 recommendations, one from a teacher and one from a peer or community member. So your first recommendation, it has to be from your junior or senior year in a math, English, or science class. And that was really annoying towards me because I wanted to use my elective course teachers and the teachers that I really had a bond with, but they made it so you have to take a core class teacher to give your recommendation. So if you are a senior or a junior, make sure to make really good connections or a connection with a teacher that you know will write a good recommendation for you, and make sure they're your English, math, or science teacher. The second recommendation that's not school is from a person, non-relative of your choice. So the examples that they put down were employer, religious leader, coach, teacher, or another individual who knows you well. So some tips about recommendations. So obviously get on good sides with people and make sure they know how much you want to go to BYU. Also, you may not have a lot of time if you're a senior and you want to use one of your teachers to establish a bond, so make sure to get on that. And lastly, you are responsible for them to submit it. So make sure you're on their back asking them about when they're submitting, because you won't be able to submit your final application until they submit their little parts. One of the scariest parts about the BYU application is the essays. There are 6 essays, which blew me away when I opened the application. There are 4 prompt essays, which I'll have below if you want, that you can read through them because I don't want to just read them to you. Those were the prompts from my year, and I don't know if they'll stay the same or not. So the first 4 essays are 2,000 characters, and don't let that scare you. I know it sounds like a lot, but actually it goes by pretty fast. You'll be surprised at how many characters just 3 paragraphs are. Remember, just a space is a character. So the next 2 prompts are about your activities. So you have to describe an activity that you are a part of, and they actually have like the type of activity. It could be like a sport or a club, and they have like a slide down list or something, whatever that's called, and you can choose what that is. And so you have to describe it in 200 characters, I'm pretty sure. And then you have to write an essay about how you were benefited from that activity, and that is also 2,000 characters. So my final tips are be active in seminary and have a good relationship with your seminary teacher. Make sure you're involved in church and you're going to activities, and if you have any sins that you need to take care of, talk to the bishop before you put in your application, because you don't want the bishop to say that you're not worthy to go to this church school. Work hard throughout high school. Try your best to get the best grades you can, but don't let grades take over your life. Make sure you're still active in church, in clubs, in extracurriculars, in sports, anything like that, because those are also important on your application. Make sure to study for your ACT. I took my first ACT when I was a sophomore, and so I just took it a ton of times and I studied a ton for it until I got the best grade possible, and that's what you should do. Just try your best. Find a way to better your community. Make connections with teachers early and people you want to write recommendations for you. And for essays, start them early, start them once you open your application, and be genuine in them. Try to show the BYU people that are seeing if you will be accepted that you want to go to BYU and that you'd really thrive there. So I hope these tips helped you, and obviously I'm not the best person to ask, but those are just some things that I've gathered throughout my 4 years of high school and things that I wish I knew when I was applying for BYU or when I was even 8th grade just thinking about wanting to get into BYU. Thanks for watching, guys, and I wish you luck in your pursuit to get into the college that you want to go to.